Hi, this is a new Nigeria with Wale Oluwade. This is your current affairs program where we critically examine the strategic issues bedeviling Nigeria's developmental aspirations and boldly offer practical suggestions on building the Nigeria of our collective desires. Today's episode promises to be engaging and exciting. My guest is already here to assist me in doing justice and also give depth and clarity to the topic of our discourse. As always, it's going to be evidence-driven, honest, bold, and a no-holds-barred conversation. So get ready as we begin in earnest. And now, let's get on with it. Today, we're looking at the economic issues for 2023 and beyond. The Nigerian economy is in dire straits, to borrow a common parlance. Cost of living remains ever on the increase. Latest MBS figures rate general inflation at 19.64%, although food inflation may well be above 50%. Mass poverty continues to grow and expand unabated, with about 100 million Nigerians living in extreme poverty. Cost of production for businesses remain prohibitive due to unreliable electricity supply and the astronomical prices of diesel. Likewise, the unavailability of foreign exchange for importation of raw materials and spare parts, in addition to the multiplicity of taxes, levies, dues, etc. These businesses have to pay to remain afloat. General and youth unemployment rates remain at an all-time high. So, businesses either pass this cost to the consumers or shut down. Our currency, the Naira, continues to depreciate against the US dollars and other foreign currencies, since we're essentially an import-dependent economy. Public or private sector jobs creation are either minuscule or non-existent. Actually, there are massive job losses across every sector of the Nigerian economy. Agricultural outputs continue to hemorrhage as the farmlands have remained dangerous territories due to the activities of banditry, terrorism, and kidnappings. Unsurprisingly, with the foregoing apocalyptic scenario, the GDP is the lowest it's been in decades. So, in the throes of this and other depressing realities, what strategic steps are fundamental to stemming the slide and repositioning the country's economy towards real growth and development from 2023 and beyond? Do the leading presidential and governorship candidates have an appreciation of the enormity of the challenges ahead? Indeed, from the campaign rhetoric of these candidates, is there any hope for the new government in 2023? These are some of the issues we're examining today. We'll take this short break, and when we return, we'll get right into the conversation. Please stay with us. Welcome back. My guest is already here, Professor Uche Iwaleke. Good afternoon, Prof.
Thank you very much, Wale.
You're welcome.
Thank you. It's indeed my pleasure, and I'm delighted to be part of this conversation, towards having a new Nigeria.
Nice to have you again.
Thank you very much, Wale.
A brief introduction. Professor Uche Iwaleke is a financial economist and renowned professor of capital markets at the Nasarawa State University. He's a chartered banker, stockbroker, and a fellow of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria. He also served as the chief economist and director of research at the Securities and Exchange Commission, Nigeria. He was also a former commissioner for finance in Imo State. I could go on, but let's stop there for now. Once again, Prof, good afternoon. You're welcome.
Thank you, Wale.
Let's get right into the conversation. How is the economy faring, in your opinion? I mean, you listened to the introduction. What do you think?
Yes. A lot of work needs to be done. In terms of macro stability, we still have much work to do. See where inflation rate is today, even though it's not peculiar to Nigeria. But the trend is what is disturbing. Since January, it's been on the rise. The latest figure puts it at 19.64%. We know, yes, that's on the back of what is happening globally, the Russian-Ukraine conflict, supply chain disruptions, rising energy costs, and so on. But we also have our own unique, challenges that are driving the inflation. Take, for example, the cost of fuel. Okay, yes, cost of fuel is high because of the rise in international crude oil price. But do we, as a country, as an oil-producing country, okay, do we have a reason to be importing petroleum products? We don't have that reason. We have 4 refineries in Nigeria with the capacity to produce 450,000 barrels of
at least meet local consumption.
But none of them is functional. I just read that the NNPC spent 56 billion, naira on rehabilitating the refineries that are not, functional. Again, a recent report I saw, a report by the NNPC, to FAC, talked about the country spending as much as 1.59 trillion naira on oil subsidy between January and July. You can imagine what 1.59 trillion, can do in other sectors, of the economy. Exactly. So we have a very major challenge with respect to, supply of petroleum products, and that's also what is driving the inflation. There's also the issue of power, inadequate power supply. Okay, a country of over 200 million people generating, some say 5,000, some say 7,000 megawatts of electricity, that is unacceptable. You look at South Africa, for example, 58 million people, we here generate as much as 55, megawatts of electricity.
1,000 megawatts.
Yeah, 1,000 of electricity. Unemployment rate is also high. A lot of people are thrown into the labor market. Okay. Again, from what we have read, we need to create a minimum of 5 million jobs on a yearly basis over the next 10 years in order to bridge the unemployment gap. So unemployed youth remain a challenge. Part of why you also find this rising crime.
And not just a challenge,
Yes.
even a threat.
A threat, as I'm saying, the rising crime, okay, of course, is not unrelated to the high rate of, unemployment. You also mentioned it. GDP growth has also been very tepid. Yes, positive territory, but not quite strong. The last one we saw, 3.11%. That's quarter one of 2022. Okay, if you disaggregate the figure, according to the MBS, the oil sector, okay, the mainstay of this economy, grew by minus 26%.
Wow.
Yes, you say your program is evidence-based. That's why I mentioned these numbers. Minus 26%. That means it is well in the negative territory. And why is that so? Partly because of the issue of oil production. We are still being challenged by pipeline vandalism, by oil theft. Again, I read recently that between January and July, this country lost about 28 million barrels per day, in oil theft. Okay, so when you have production,
those are potential revenues to the government that has gone into.
Exactly. Oil price today is in excess of $100 per barrel. Ideally, we should be benefiting from that, but we are not, because we can't even meet OPEC quota.
I mean, let me take up from where you stopped. The non-oil sector is driving our weak, in my own opinion, very weak GDP growth. But imagine if the economy was really performing as it should. Imagine what the non-oil sector would actually contribute. And if we're doing 3.1, like you said, first quarter, I mean, the GDP growth we need on a consistent basis to drive real growth and development in Nigeria.
7% minimum.
Should be not even 7%.
No, that says
double digits.
Yeah,
GDP growth
I agree with you.
Is what we need. 10 years consistent growth for the next 10 years. We need double GDP growth. But that's not where I'm going, Prof.
Yes.
Because this is all about, we're looking at what. Let's set an economic agenda for the candidates. In your view, I mean, as you listen to them, even I know officially campaigns haven't really started, but as you listen to either the candidates or their surrogates, know, appearing on TV or going all over, what's your takeaway? I want us to cover as much ground as possible. I have a number of questions, so if you could, make some of this, very short. What do you think? Do you think they understand what's going on? How serious the situation is?
Well, you could say perhaps it's because the campaigns have not officially, kicked off. Campaigns are supposed to kick off by September. So maybe that's, in my view, why some of them are, are holding back. But I expect that by now, at least the 3 or 4, leading candidates by now should have their, economic blueprint, ready. Economic blueprint, at least, even if it is not manifesto for campaign. This is my roadmap, to address the challenges we have in the economy. I think so far it's only one candidate that has made it, his own.
Who is that?
I think Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, my covenant with Nigeria, I think that's the one I saw, Atiku plan. I think that's the one that is now in the public domain. We also saw that of, I think, Ahmed Bola Tinubu, but later they came and said it was not an official one. So for now, one is working with the one that is in the public domain. And if we go by what is in that document, that of article, I think if a greater percentage of that is implemented, is executed, okay, I think we will get, we'll have some mileage, particularly in terms of, removing, according to him, the government monopoly, okay. Government monopoly in infrastructure sectors. So, that document, talked about, for example, if you have a petroleum sector, for example, completely decentralizing it and incentivizing the setting up of modular refineries. Okay, and that's actually what we need. We don't need to, rely on only the government to meet the petroleum or refining needs of Nigeria. So the private sector should be engaged, modular refineries should be involved. Again, while we also know that Dangote refinery with a capacity of 60,000 barrels per day, will also complement.
Sorry to butt in.
Yes.
This government, haven't they already kickstarted the process of liberalizing the oil and gas sector with the passage of the PIA? And they've actually gone forward to begin its implementation. So recently they did some kind of unveiling. Yes. Unveiling of the NNPC Limited from a government-owned agency to limited. Yeah. I have my reservations. I have my serious criticism of that process, But what do you think? Briefly, Prof.
Yes, I think it's now about giving teeth to the Act, Petroleum Industry Act. So it's important for whoever emerges as the next president, to implement it. Yes, this administration has, kick-started it. So it's important that, it is continued, it's taken to the end. And part of that implementation, will require opening up the sector for the private sector to come in and invest. And for that to happen, petroleum subsidy has to go. There are no two questions about that. Subsidy has to go. I just told you that between January and June, we spent 1.59 trillion naira on subsidy alone. It's not sustainable. We can't continue like that.
The budget for this year's subsidy is 4 trillion naira.
Yes, I
and
hear.
The budget for next year is 6.7 trillion.
Exactly.
Okay, so Prof.
It's not sustainable.
Definitely it's not sustainable.
Yes.
Because that money could do a lot in other sectors.
Yes.
Let me ask you, Prof. I was listening to Professor Bolaji Akinyemi this morning, and he said it will take, he was reviewing the elections in Kenya, where William Ruto has just been declared winner. So they were saying, maybe William Ruto is going to turn the economy of Kenya around and all of that. But he said it will take like 5 successive William Rutos to actually achieve sustainable or appreciable level of tangible developments in Kenya. Yes. To my mind, when I hear some of these politicians in Nigeria speak, they're promising El Dorado, and I know it's not going to happen. Before we go on this short break, I want one sentence from you. How bad is our situation economically? Is this something that can be solved in a 4-year cycle? One sentence.
No quick fix, particularly with respect to the fundamentals I mentioned.
Please stay with us. We'll take this short break. I will come back shortly. Thank you. Welcome back. Prof, before we went on that short break, you were saying we could achieve some of these issues, in a 4-year cycle. Yeah, exactly. And I was saying maybe I have a slight disagreement. Yes. My view on governance in Nigeria, in appreciating the enormity of the task
Yes.
ahead of any government coming in 2023,
Yes.
are twofold.
Yes.
Number one is attitudinal, changing
Yes.
mindset.
Yes.
That's a huge task. One of the greatest things as a management consultant,
Yes.
when we talk about change management strategies,
Yes.
is changing people's mindset, the cultural attitudes.
But it doesn't take a decade to do that.
It may not take a
Yes.
decade, but I don't think. Anyway,
Yes.
that's one.
Yes.
Secondly is eliminating waste
Exactly.
and corruption.
Corruption, yes, I agree with you.
And they're even tied together.
Yes.
That's also, and eliminating waste and corruption
Yes.
even dovetails into the head of the government. And whenever we say government, I'm not
Yes.
just talking about the president, I'm talking
Yes.
about even the 36 state governors.
Exactly.
They need to appreciate that.
Yes.
Are we going to elect a governor or a president that understands that, number one, we cannot have a presidential fleet, we
Yes.
cannot have this convoy of
yes,
vehicles,
exactly.
we cannot have MDAs,
Exactly.
revenue generating MDAs,
Yes.
where they are giving car allowances running into hundreds of millions,
Exactly.
50 million
Exactly.
to an individual,
Exactly.
where you cannot pay school fees and all of that.
Exactly.
That's why I said I'm a bit skeptical that anything meaningful can be achieved.
No, it's
In-
positive. It's
in
possible.
4 years.
No, why not? Just
You
as
know-
you said, it takes the leader, leading by example. Okay, if the next president comes in 2023 and even by his actions and so on, Nigerians, get that picture that is no more business as usual. Yes, they will key in. I give an example.
Let me give you this task, Prof. Sorry to butt in once again.
Yes.
Sorry. You tell us. You're a professor. You're an academic. This is what you do for a living. Please give us a template, 3-4 items that are strategic, that are fundamental, that whoever is coming in, either as president or governor, they need to get it right. These 3 or 4 things, they are fundamental. Please.
Okay. Now, the first thing I expect the president to do is to, within the first 2 weeks, okay, to appoint his lieutenants, appoint the ministers. Okay, that shouldn't take 6 months or 7 months. So that will give the impression that he's ready to work. And for the person to be able to do that, this is even the time for him to identify, those people and ensuring that the rights,
in fact, Prof, the election is February 25th, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Swearing in is May. Is it not normal for someone who has won election, has been declared winner, has given certificate? Shouldn't he just announce his cabinet, and then begin to meet? That's what happens in other
shadow cabinet.
After the Biden won 2020.
Yes.
All his team were, announced before he was even sworn in.
Exactly.
Please, go ahead.
No, I agree with you. Such that as soon as the National Assembly, is
inaugurated.
The
ministers appear for screening and confirmation.
And when the ministers are appearing for screening,
they are already attaching portfolio.
Okay, we attach portfolio so that the National Assembly members will now know how to interrogate them. Exactly. So that is one. The second thing is that usually when a new regime comes in, it's associated with new purchases, purchase of cars, purchase of furniture, and the rest of them. So you lead by example when you say patronize locally made goods. So if we are going to buy vehicles, all those vehicles must be produced in Nigeria. Okay, Innoson is there, and some other people will also even be encouraged to assemble cars here in Nigeria. So we don't end up spending billions of dollars buying Prado Jeeps, which will also have a huge toll on the foreign exchange, our foreign reserves and exchange rates. So it's still in line with that, and of course, ensure that insecurity is at the heart of.
How does he deal with this, Prof?
He can deal with that by, just as one of even is stated in that document, by decentralizing it, decentralizing the police, allowing state governors allowing states to have their own police. Let this issue of security
that would
be handled at
require
the state level.
Constitutional amendments to have
constitutional amendments,
and not just state policing. I mean,
yes.
I would also think complete autonomy for local governments. That can be a pronouncement made, and then a serious partnership with members of the National
Assembly.
Assembly.
So then another one is I also expect the person coming in to institute, as it were, an audit of all MDAs, all government ministries, departments, and agencies, not by the Auditor General for the Federation, because that's his constitutional auditor, but by external auditors, consultants,
international reputable ones,
international and the local
ones.
Let them audit them by the time you audit all these MDAs, audit their, even the TSA, audit this TSA, and then do a systems audit too. Systems audit means you audit their processes. That way you're also plugging leakages. You're plugging leakages. So these are the things that I expect the person coming in to do initially, to be able to have some, mileage to work. Okay? So people should have that impression that, as I know, I must emphasize that it's not business as usual, by looking at what the initial actions, the first 100 days that the new man, comes in, what it does and what is able to achieve. I agree with you. Some of these things may take time, but, gradually, we will get there, particularly with this issue of audits. That audit should be taken, very, very seriously. It's not as if you're probing previous regimes, no, but you're also trying to, get things better. And of course, ensuring too that the size of government is reduced, trimming down the size of government, ensuring that you don't fill everywhere with political aids and so on. By the time people see you, genuinely cutting the cost of governance, I'm sure at the states level too, some of them will also, key in. So I think these initial actions will send the right signal, to the populace. By the time you see the president driving in Osun car, for example, or you see the head of the judiciary, the National Assembly, of course, Nigerians on their own will want to patronize, locally made products. And by the time we do that, you can imagine the kind of forex that will conserve. Again, if the new government comes and says, everybody working in this administration, including directors and so on, make sure that your kids are here.
I was going to go there, you just took it right out of my mouth.
Exactly. Okay, those already abroad.
We need to curb diaspora education and health tourism. Education tourism and
that of health tourism. It may be difficult because you might say somebody may not. Somebody will tell you my condition is critical and can't. But education. If your son is already there before the admission, that one is understandable. But going forward, no new admissions, will be given if you are working in the administration. So your student stays there. And if that happens, you can be very sure that this issue of ASU strikes and so on will become a thing of the past, because everybody will now see that as, you now become a stakeholder.
Exactly.
Okay? Now, if your child or ward is also in public universities. So I think that is very critical. That of health tourism, as I said, may take time. We spend as much as between 2010 and 2020, we spent $30 billion on foreign education. So that kind of money will be saved when people don't go abroad to study.
This is a continuing conversation, Prof.
Yes, yes.
I must really appreciate you for coming.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much,
Thank
Prof.
you, Wale. Thank you.
And that's the end of the interview segment. We'll take this short break, and when we come back, I'll give my closing statements. Please stay with us, please. Welcome back. And here are my closing statements. As I observe the candidates in the next year's elections, it doesn't seem to me as if they truly understand the gargantuan scale of the systemic rot and the interventionist work required to fix the country for good once and for all. Most of these candidates are going about, or their surrogates are saying, they will do this or that project or turn the economy to a productive one. And my response is how? Personally, I see the next administration, if we get it right, as a transition government. What is a transition government? One that is saddled with clearing the present socio-political and economic debris, and towards its later stages, lay some groundwork in terms of legislation, social and policy reforms. Imagine the administration as a contractor at the site of a collapsed skyscraper. Take the Twin Towers in New York, for example. After the 9/11 terror attack, the task was first to clear the monumental heap of debris before any meaningful reconstruction could begin. And even for a mere building, it took a couple of years to complete this process. So what time frame will it take for a country that has been devastated by decades-long misgovernance and kleptomania? Indeed, the bigger task, in my view, is changing the mindsets and attitudes of all Nigerians. And this is a daunting task. In this program, we shall say it as it is. We shall not allow any of the candidates deceive you. 2014-2015 is just too fresh in my memory. and we're all living witnesses to the results of a government which got into office on a populist-centered, even if outrightly deceitful and subversive campaign rhetoric. Now, I have only one recommendation for Nigerian voters today. Ask all the candidates tough questions. If you are not clear on their responses, ask them to explain in fuller details. Do not allow anyone deceive you, saying, elect us, then we will solve all your problems. The proper sequence is, convince me, then I will give you my vote. Any candidate who is unwilling or unable to speak to you clearly about their understanding of the precarious situation we're in and stating in simple language the process by which he or she intends to chart a way forward, if elected, is not worthy of your votes. Remember, change requires action, and positive change requires positive action. I believe in a new Nigeria, and it is possible. And those are my closing thoughts. Now, that's the program for today. Remember to follow me on my different social media handles. Subscribe to my YouTube channel so you can watch this and other videos there at your convenience. Drop your comments also. I'd love to hear from you. And I'll see you next time. Bye for now.